The dusty streets of Silver Creek baked under the relentless Arizona sun, where the air shimmered like a mirage and the distant howls of coyotes echoed like ghosts from the canyons. Jack Harlan, the richest cattle baron in 3 counties, strode down the wooden boardwalk with his 10-year-old son, Tommy, trailing at his heels. Jack's boots clicked with authority, his silver spurs glinting like the fortune he'd amassed through ruthless deals and a herd that stretched to the horizon. His Stetson hat shaded a face etched with lines from years of hard riding, and his holstered Colt revolver swung low on his hip, a reminder that wealth didn't come without blood. They passed the saloon where piano music tinkled out into the street, mixed with the laughter of gamblers and the clink of whiskey glasses. Jack nodded to the sheriff leaning against a post, but his eyes scanned ahead, always alert in a town where grudges festered like open wounds. Then, there she was. A beggar huddled in the shadow of the general store, her tattered shawl pulled tight around frail shoulders, her hand outstretched for alms that no one gave. Her face was hidden beneath a bonnet stained with trail dust, her eyes downcast, begging for scraps like a stray dog. Jack walked past without a glance, his mind on the cattle drive set for dawn. But Tommy stopped dead, his small hand tugging at his father's coat. "Father," the boy whispered, his voice trembling like a leaf in the wind, "that's Ma." Jack froze, his blood turning to ice in the scorching heat. He spun on his heel, staring at the beggar as if she'd risen from the grave. "What did you say, boy?" he growled, but Tommy's wide eyes were fixed on the woman, who now lifted her head slowly, revealing a face scarred by time and torment, eyes that Jack knew all too well, eyes that had once sparkled with love in their homestead cabin. It couldn't be. Eliza Harlan had died 5 years ago, or so he'd been told. Shot down in a stagecoach robbery on her way back from visiting kin in Tucson. The sheriff had brought him the news himself, along with a bloodied locket that was hers. Jack had buried an empty coffin on the hill overlooking their ranch, drowning his grief in whiskey and work until the pain dulled to a scar. But here she was, alive, begging in the filth of Silver Creek streets. Or was it a trick of the light, a desert phantom come to haunt him? "Stay here," Jack muttered to Tommy, his hand instinctively dropping to his gun as he approached the woman. The townsfolk paused, sensing the storm brewing. "Eliza," he said, his voice a hoarse whisper that carried the weight of lost years. She looked up, and in that moment, the world tilted. Her lips parted, cracked and dry, but no words came. Instead, a tear traced a path through the grime on her cheek. Jack's heart hammered like a blacksmith's forge, alive, but how? Why? The shock hit him like a bullet, ripping open wounds he'd thought healed. He reached out, but she flinched back, her eyes darting to the shadows as if expecting danger to leap from them. Before he could speak again, a shadow fell across them. Black Bart, the notorious outlaw with a bounty on his head higher than Jack's tallest steer, stepped out from the alley, his hand on his pearl-handled pistol. "Well, well, Harlan," Bart sneered, his mustache twitching like a snake's tail. "Fancy meetin' you here with your long-lost wife. Or should I say, my little secret?" Jack's world narrowed to the glint of steel in Bart's hand. The street cleared as folk scattered, knowing a showdown when they smelled one. Tommy whimpered, but Jack pushed him behind a barrel. "What the hell do you know about this?" Jack demanded, his voice steady despite the rage boiling inside. Bart laughed, a sound like gravel under boots. "Oh, I know plenty. That stagecoach robbery. My boys did the deed, but we didn't kill her. Took her instead. Figured a pretty thing like Eliza could fetch a price, or keep me company in the Badlands." He leered at her, and Eliza shrank further, her body trembling. The revelation struck Jack like lightning, his wife, alive all these years, captive to this scum. But why beg now? Why here? Suspense thickened the air as Jack's mind raced. Was this a trap? Bart's gang was known for ambushes, luring men into the open with bait. His finger itched on the trigger, but shooting now could endanger Eliza and Tommy. "Draw if you dare, Harlan," Bart taunted, his eyes gleaming with madness. But know this, she's got secrets of her own. Ask her why she didn't escape sooner. Jack glanced at Eliza, searching for truth in her haunted gaze. She mouthed a single word, run. But it was too late. Gunfire erupted from the rooftops. Bart's men, hidden like vultures. Bullets splintered the boardwalk as Jack dove for cover, grabbing Tommy and pulling Eliza with him into the general store. Glass shattered, screams filled the air, and the Old West's brutal dance began. Inside, amid sacks of flour and barrels of nails, Jack barricaded the door with a heavy crate. Talk, woman, he hissed at Eliza, his gun trained on the entrance. What happened? Why didn't you come home? Eliza's voice was a whisper, broken by sobs. They took me, Jack. Bart's gang. Said you'd pay ransom, but you never did. Her words hum like smoke, ransom. He'd never heard of any demand. Was she lying? Or had someone intercepted it? Tommy clung to her skirt, tears streaming. Ma, I knew it was you. I remembered your eyes. But outside, Bart's voice boomed, come out, Harlan. Or we'll burn this town to the ground. Jack's mind whirled with suspicion. 5 years, why appear now? He peeked through a crack in the shutter, seeing Bart's men fanning out, torches in hand. The sheriff was nowhere in sight, bought off. The suspense clawed at him, trust Eliza, or was she part of the ploy? I escaped 2 months ago, Eliza continued, her hands shaking as she clutched Tommy. Hid in the canyons, starving, until I made it here. But Bart's been hunting me. He says I know where his gold is hidden, the loot from a dozen robberies. Gold? Jack's eyes narrowed. Bart's legendary haul from the Wells Fargo heist vanished without a trace. If Eliza knew its location, that explained the pursuit. But did she? Or was this a lure to draw him into the desert, where Bart could finish him off and claim his ranch? A bullet whizzed through the window, grazing Jack's arm. Blood soaked his sleeve, but he fired back, dropping one of Bart's men in the street. We gotta get to the livery, he said, formulating a plan. Horses there. Ride for the ranch. Eliza nodded, but her eyes flickered with something unspoken. As they slipped out the back door into the alley, Jack couldn't shake the doubt. Tommy's whisper echoed in his head, that's Ma. But what if this Ma was changed, twisted by years of captivity into something dangerous? They mounted stolen horses under the cover of dusk, galloping out of Silver Creek with Bart's gang in hot pursuit. Dust clouds rose like demons, and the pounding hooves drowned out all but the gunfire cracking behind them. Jack led them into the Badlands, where red rocks jutted like jagged teeth, hoping to lose the outlaws in the maze of canyons. Night fell like a shroud, stars piercing the black sky as they huddled in a shallow cave. Eliza tended Jack's wound with strips from her shawl, her touch familiar yet foreign. I never stopped loving you, she murmured, but Jack pulled away. Tell me about the gold, he demanded, his voice low to not wake Tommy, who slept fitfully nearby. She hesitated, suspense building in the silence broken only by distant owl hoots. Bart buried it in Whispering Gulch, under the twisted juniper. But he made me swear, threatened our boy if I told. Our boy? Tommy was safe at the ranch back then, or was he? Jack's heart skipped, had Bart's reach extended further than he knew? Before she could elaborate, a rustle outside the cave sent Jack bolting up, gun drawn. A figure emerged from the shadows, not Bart, but Silas, Jack's old ranch hand, rifle in hand. Boss, I followed the shots from town. Sheriff's in on it, Bart paid him off. Relief washed over Jack, but suspicion lingered. Silas had been with him for years, but loyalties shifted like sand in the west. Help us get to the ranch, Jack said, deciding to trust for now. They rode through the night, the pursuit closing in. At dawn, they crested a ridge overlooking Harlan Ranch, its sprawling corrals and adobe house a beacon of safety. But smoke rose from the barns, Bart's men had struck first, setting fires to flush them out. Ambush! Jack yelled as bullets sang from the rooftops. They dismounted, taking cover behind boulders. Eliza grabbed a fallen rifle, firing with surprising accuracy, dropping an outlaw with a headshot. Jack stared. Where had she learned that? In the chaos, Tommy screamed as a stray bullet nicked his leg. Rage fueled Jack. He charged the house, guns blazing, taking down 2 men in a hail of lead. Inside, he found the foreman tied up, babbling about Bart's demands. But the real shock came when they cornered Bart in the study, his boots on Jack's desk, sipping his whiskey. You think this is about gold? Bart laughed maniacally. Eliza here, she's been my partner all along. Faked her death to escape your boring life, Harlan. We planned the robbery together. Jack's world shattered. He turned to Eliza, who stood pale, rifle lowered. Is it true? He whispered, the suspense peaking as her eyes filled with tears. No, she cried, but doubt gnawed at him. Tommy, bandaged but brave, tugged his sleeve. Father, listen to her. Bart drew his gun faster than a rattler strike, but Eliza fired first, the bullet tearing through his chest. He slumped, gasping, the gold. It's yours now, darling. As Bart died, Eliza confessed the twisted truth. During her captivity, she'd played along to survive, learning his secrets, even pretending affection to gain freedom. But Bart had a child with her, a secret daughter hidden in the Badlands, the real reason she hadn't returned sooner. She feared Jack's rejection. The shock hit Jack like a stampede, another child. His family fractured, then mended in blood. They rode out to find the girl, a 4-year-old with Eliza's eyes, living with a kindly prospector. But suspense lingered. Bart's dying words hinted at more gold, and whispers of his surviving gang plotting revenge. As they returned to the ranch, rebuilding from ashes, Jack wondered if peace was possible in the Wild West, or if shadows would always chase them. Years passed, but the past clawed back. One stormy night, a stranger rode in, claiming to be Bart's brother, demanding the gold's location. Gunfight ensued, revealing Eliza had hidden the treasure not for greed, but to fund an orphanage for lost souls like her. Twists unraveled. The sheriff's betrayal stemmed from an old feud with Jack's father, and Silas was the mole, paid to lead Bart to them. Jack confronted Silas in a duel at high noon, the town watching as justice prevailed. Tommy grew into a fine young man, but the whisper that started it all haunted him, "That's Ma." It bonded them, yet reminded of fragility. In the end, the Harlan family stood strong, but the West's shocks never ceased, outlaws, droughts, betrayals. Jack, older now, sat on the porch, watching sunsets, knowing every shadow could hide a secret. Continuing the story to reach approximately 5,000 words, expanding on subplots, character developments, and suspenseful events. As the sun dipped low over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, Jack Harlan reflected on that fateful day in Silver Creek. The ranch had prospered since then, with new fences stretching farther and cattle fatter than ever. But peace was an illusion in these parts, where every stranger could be a threat. Eliza had integrated back into life, those scars ran deep. The daughter, little Annie, toddled around with Tommy's protective eye on her. Yet Jack caught Eliza staring into the distance, as if waiting for ghosts to return. One evening, as thunder rumbled like distant cannon fire, a knock came at the door. A drenched rider stood there, hat low, water dripping from his oilskin coat. "Name's Zeke Harlan," he said, his voice gravelly. "Your brother, Jack. Long lost." Jack's jaw tightened. His parents had spoken of a stillborn sibling, but here was a man claiming kin. Suspense built as Zeke produced a faded photograph. Their mother holding 2 infants. "Ma gave me up to kin in Texas to protect me from Pa's enemies," Zeke explained. "Heard about your troubles with Bart and came to help." But was it true? Jack's instincts screamed caution. That night, As lightning cracked the sky, Jack rifled through old trunks, finding letters hinting at a family secret, a twin brother sent away after a raid on their homestead. Zeke proved handy, mending fences and riding herd. Yet small things nagged. Missing tools, whispers with hands. Then, cattle started vanishing, tracks leading to the Badlands. Confrontation came under a full moon. Jack followed Zeke to Whispering Gulch, where the gold was buried. There, Zeke dug furiously, unearthing chests gleaming with coins. "This is mine too, brother," Zeke snarled, gun drawn. "Bart was my partner, sent me to finish what he started." The shock twisted like a knife. Zeke wasn't kin, but Bart's kin, impersonating to steal the fortune. They dueled in the gulch, echoes of shots bouncing off rocks. Jack's bullet found its mark, but not before Zeke wounded him gravely. Eliza nursed him back, revealing she'd suspected Zeke from the start, recognized Bart's ring on his finger. "I didn't say anything," she confessed, "fearing you'd think I was still tied to that life." Trust rebuilt slowly, but the West tested them again. A drought hit, rivers drying to cracks, cattle dying. Desperate, Jack led a drive to greener pastures, crossing Comanche territory. Ambush struck in a narrow pass, arrows flying like deadly rain. Tommy, now 15, fought bravely, but Eliza was captured, dragged away screaming. Heart pounding, Jack rallied survivors, tracking the war party to their camp. Under cover of night, he infiltrated, finding Eliza bound, but the chief revealed a shocking alliance, paid by a rival rancher, old enemy Vance Cutler, to cripple Harlan's empire. Rescue turned bloody, knives flashing in firelight. Jack freed Eliza, but Tommy took an arrow to the shoulder. They escaped on stolen ponies, vowing revenge on Cutler. Back home, Jack stormed Cutler's spread, a fortress of armed men. Showdown in the corral, dust swirling as guns roared. Cutler fell, confessing he'd orchestrated the original stagecoach hit, jealous of Jack's success. Revelations piled. Cutler had intercepted the ransom note, letting Eliza suffer to break Jack. The sheriff, Cutler's cousin, covered it all. With enemies buried, the Harlans thrived. Annie grew spirited, Tommy took over herding. But one final shock awaited. On Tommy's 18th birthday, a lawyer arrived with a will, Bart's, naming Tommy his heir. "Wait," Jack protested, "that's impossible. DNA of the West, blood ties." Eliza broke down. During captivity, Bart had forced himself, and Tommy was his son. The whisper returned, "Father, that's Ma." But now, "Father," rang hollow. Shock rippled through Jack. He'd raised the boy as his own, loved him fiercely. Forgiveness came hard, but love won. Tommy stayed, declaring Jack his true pa. The family bonded tighter, facing the West's endless trials. Years later, as Jack grayed, a new threat loomed, railroad barons eyeing their land. Protests turned violent, dynamite blasting tracks. In a climactic stand, Jack defended the ranch, outgunned but outsmarting. Victory tasted sweet, but scars reminded of the day a beggar changed everything. The story of the Harlans became legend, whispered in saloons, a rich cowboy, a beggar, a son's whisper unveiling a web of deceit, survival, and shocking truths in the unforgiving Old West.